Hello, folks, and welcome to this LinkedIn Live edition of the CPG Guys on this beautiful Sunday. I'm, of course, Sri, your co host, and do check out my daughter's music at www.riaraj.com. That's www.ihearaj.com. Before we get to our guests, I want to remind our audience to visit cpgguys.com in a web browser where you can find links to our podcast on all the major platforms. And if you're not already doing so, please do follow us on LinkedIn where we publish new comments every day, 7 days a week, even on the weekends. This moment today is a very special week that just happened for me. In the last 90 days, I've been lucky enough to be live at Times Square with my older daughter, Ria Raj, as she featured on the Billboard for Spotify's Artist of the Month in May, and my younger daughter, Laura, now in the top 20 for Geffen Records Universal Music's Next Global's Girl Band launch. Yeah, I'm talking top 20. I'm living in an unreal moment, and I want to pinch myself. And this episode, of course, has nothing to do with music, but has to do with none other than an ongoing series we have with Ibotta, a free cashback rewards web and mobile app that gives you real cash for everyday purchases when you shop. Y'all told us you'll want to get Ibotta on the show, so here we are. Ibotta provides thousands of ways for consumers to earn cash on their purchases by partnering with more than 2,700 brands and retailers, and of course also provides rewards programs for top retailers and makes its offer content available on a number of leading websites and apps through the Ibotta Performance Network. Today's discussion will be about change we have all experienced as consumers, retailers, and consumer goods over the last 3 years with a significant digital lean into omnichannel behaviors. That change, of course, has largely been led by mobile and rewards. To decompose that, we have Chris Jensen, the CRO of Ibotta, with us today. Chris, welcome to this LinkedIn Live, and thanks for giving us your Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. We could make this more musical if you'd like. I can sing my answers. I don't know that we'll have many listeners for long, but happy to do that if it helps.
I have been known to rap many a time on the CPG Guys, so don't tempt me, Chris. Uh, but before we actually get started with the discussion today on the change in omnichannel behaviors and then the downstream impact of that, can you take a quick minute and tell us who is Ibotta and your role there?
Yes, as you said, Ibotta is a cashback rewards network that powers primarily CPG and general merchandise rewards across an ecosystem, including our app and a number of other distribution points, including platforms like Walmart, Dollar General, and Kroger. My role at the company is to oversee revenue and operations. We have four different revenue pillars and a robust and very talented operations group that roll up under me. I've been with the company for about 7 years, but I've been around grocery and performance marketing for my whole career. I spent 7 years at Whole Foods. I was global marketing director there, where ultimately I fell in love with performance marketing. And that led me down this path, started a company in the space after leaving Whole Foods before joining Ibotta.
Well, thank you so much for that, Chris. And a reminder also to our audience that Ibotta's founder and CEO, Brian Lee, joined us on August 26th in a podcast episode to discuss all things mobile and rewards. To listen to that episode, all you got to do is cut and paste the link right below here at the bottom of the video. And you can also go, of course, to cpgguys.com on a web browser and easily search for the episode. So, Chris, it's that moment where we're ready to move forward. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Good evening. Welcome. Take us through the journey. Just give us a summary. 36 months. Sometimes it feels like yesterday, but I still remember when pandemic hit us. 36 actual months have passed by, and CPG Land has gone deeply into the omnichannel world. A, do you first agree we're now deeply in that omnichannel world and that's the way of the future? And what do you think if there were a handful of things as winning ways for brands and retailers that you all of at Ibotta have kind of said, hey, we got to double down on and help brands?
Yeah, I largely agree that we've gone deep down the omni-channel path. Obviously, the last 3 years have been quite a roller coaster for the macro economy, but in particular for grocery brands and retailers. Obviously, in 2020, we saw a significant shift towards online grocery purchases. By the end of the year, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in the ballpark of 25% of groceries were purchased online in a given month. And 80% of people had actually tried online grocery and pickup. Compare that to pre-pandemic, where we were in the single digits of consumers actually buying their groceries online. So really, those companies that had been investing in their digital experience won the day, and those that hadn't prepared for it really suffered. The there was another interesting phenomenon that, of course, evolved around that same time, which is supply chain constraint. We saw that in March of 2020, shoppers started panic buying, which kicked off really a shockwave of supply chain challenges that I think we're still feeling the effects of to some degree today. Those were exacerbated over the course of time by labor shortages, by material shortages. We had shipping challenges and extreme weather. And then in 2022, of course, we saw further impact by the start of the war in Ukraine. So that caused further problems getting products onto the shelves. But it also started to increase costs for brands. And we saw brands starting to pass those costs along to consumers in the form of price increases at the shelf. And in fact, many brands took price 2 or 3 times over the course of 2022, as a result of which many actually had really strong earnings reports throughout the course of the year. But this, of course, also put inflation front and center for a lot of Americans as well. So that definitely changed the way that people shopped further. People, continued to prioritize convenience, but absolutely started to think a lot more about value. And they started to look toward private label alternatives, for example, in the spirit of trying to save money and offset the effects of that inflationary cycle. I think earlier this year, we pulled some data that over the prior 12 months, we saw that private label was growing at 4 times the rate of national brands in most grocery categories. And I think we can attribute that through all of those, downstream impacts.
Hey, so Chris, so that was the last 36 months, right? We're here in fall 2023. The holiday season planning is already well underway, and we're a few weeks away from seeing it in store and online, right? So all of these behaviors that you described, as well as all the different ecosystem changes, whether it be supply chain, private label coming back, blah, 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 and a lot happened. So what are you and Ibotta seeing and therefore working with brands to focus on? I'd really love to listen how Ibotta is partnering with brands as a result of these changes to really make sure that they get the category growth that they deserve in store and online.
Yeah, it's a good question. So there's a couple of phenomena emerging here. So I think, first of all, we talked about the fact that in 2022, these brands were putting up really strong numbers, thanks to the fact that they were taking price. As they did that, of course, we started to see consumers shifting over to private label. So now brands are in a situation where they have to lap really strong comps from 2022, and they have to do so with less volume overall. So it's a challenging predicament. So we work with brands to help them drive more volume, to be able to offset some of the volume losses that they've seen and to be able to put up stronger comps, and to be able to, more importantly, offer value back to those consumers so they can reacquire them back from their private label counterparts. There is a lot of industry churn, generally speaking, and now's a great time for brands to acquire a lot of new consumers. So they look to Ibotta to provide the right offer to the right consumer in the spirit of driving incremental purchases. The other phenomenon that we have seen is that online grocery has regressed to the mean a little bit. So I mentioned that at the end of 2022, we were seeing somewhere in the ballpark of a quarter of all grocery transactions occurring online. And we're probably seeing closer to 15% today, which is still a heck of a lot higher than it was pre-pandemic, but not quite as high as it was then. I do think that period got consumers very comfortable with the idea of online grocery, and that is going to help propel future growth. We are still seeing steady growth here, and we're seeing an expectation of consumers to meet them where they are for that omnichannel experience, allowing people to engage exactly how and when they want to. So we're seeing a lot of brands investing heavily into that, and we're there to support. We definitely are about trying to meet that consumer where they are, and also to help brands engage consumers in digital ecosystems, whether on Ibotta or on our partner properties. One minor example of that is that a lot of categories are more heavily impacted by the challenges of impulse buys than others in online. So, for example, ready-to-drink beverages or confections or chocolate, things like that. Those categories struggle with online because those products are often bought while you're standing in the line at the checkout in store. And Ibotta can do more to help put that product front and center for a consumer so that they remember to buy it as part of their purchase journey. So we've had good success with things like that as well.
Good to hear overall, right? Right up top, when you answer this question, you mentioned on a focus to find the right consumer, so who can come back to the category, who might have exited the category, might have gone somewhere else. I gotta imagine there's a lot of data and analytics behind that to be able to do that. So is that a service Ibotta provides, which is not only is it rewards, but where to focus with those rewards as well, whom to focus on, and how granular does it get?
It gets quite granular. I've always said that the banks with whom I used to work in my old life when I was at Whole Foods have incredible breadth of data. They can see all the places you're buying, but they can't see what you're buying. And Ibotta has incredible depth of data, especially within the grocery and big box ecosystem, where we can see, what's in the consumer's basket. We've got really clean data that is provided by the retailer. We used to use OCR, which was a fine technology for the time, but the problem is it's messy. There could be duplicates, there can be fraud, and we've done our best to build technologies around all of that stuff. But there's no substitute for really clean, direct fed data from the retailers. So we definitely try to use that to help make our brands smarter about their market positioning, where there might be opportunity for them to invest. We'll observe certain things such as, hey, did you know that on Labor Day, your industry has a significant amount of churn within consumers who look like the following? And we recommend serving up an offer that has the following characteristics, which we think will help you steer consumers back into your desired KPI, customer acquisition or whatever it may be. We're then really good because of all that data at measurement. So we typically try to use the best in class measurement techniques we can, including test versus control, which I think are superior to legacy metrics such as MMM and other modeling type metrics when you can do it. So we definitely try to provide it on both ends, help provide the insights to help a brand understand how to invest, when to invest, how much to invest, and then we do our best to help them measure the efficacy of those campaigns.
So when Brian was actually on the podcast a few weeks ago, a few Saturdays ago, we talked about data and analytics a bit. The question that I did not ask him then, and I'm sure our audience would love to hear from you, is are you already experimenting with artificial intelligence? Because I imagine the level of data that you're processing, it's really shopper transaction data. It's got to be significant. So tech is a big backbone for y'all. And are you actually using AI to narrow down where to hunt for a brand?
Yes, absolutely. And I wish you had asked Brian because this is a huge passion of his. He would have lit up with excitement. He loves to talk about it. It's something we talk about a ton as an organization. We've been investing in for a while, and yet the opportunities are emerging so rapidly that we're investing more and more resources into it. There's so much we can do. There's so much we can do to make our client experience more seamless, to help our clients understand, hey, here's something that's emerging in terms of the data we're seeing. Let them action upon that in a really, really easy manner to be able to run a promotion and measure that promotion in a turnkey fashion that's super lightweight for them. There's a lot we could be doing in terms of meeting the right customer with the right message, things like that. Making sure that we're leveraging AI to help create a really nice personalized experience, for example, on the Ibotta platform that is highly relevant to you, Shri, and me. When we each go in, our experience might look quite different based on our prior purchasing habits. So there's a lot of different ways by which we're leveraging it. There's a ton we could be doing, both operationally and in terms of both the consumer and the client experience. So we're spending a lot of time thinking about it, but I'd say we're in the early innings of possibility.
Good to hear that you guys are looking into AI in a deep way. And so back to the data, Chris, as a chief revenue officer, if you could have a wish, do you see categories that are underdeveloped with Ibotta rewards that people or brands should be finding you guys and at least having the conversation with you?
Yeah, such a good question. So, we've been around for 12 years and we've had a good deal of success in our sort of core areas, which means that we work with about 2,000 CPG brands at this point. We're fairly well penetrated within CPG. There's always more work to be done, and we're always working to better serve our clients, but we're doing pretty well in core CPG. I feel that the space that is heavily underpenetrated is what we call general merchandise rewards. companies, when you walk into a Walmart, more than 50% of the items on the shelf are not groceries. You've got apparel, you've got electronics, you've got books, toys, games. And those manufacturers have historically had less access to performance marketing tools than a lot of grocery companies. And so we're in the process of bringing these rewards and these performance marketing tools out to these manufacturers. It's being exceptionally well received. A lot of them have not had this type of thing to play with before. They love being able to reach some of the specific audiences we can reach, such as at Walmart. And so, yeah, we're the snowball is rolling down the hill on that one. But there is a ton of green field. There are so many manufacturers within that space, and so we're moving as swiftly as we can to meet as many of them as we can.
For the record, for audience, those questions are not scripted. I just chose to ask Chris those anyway. So I'm actually going to take you to a different area: consumer shopping experiences. Upper funnel to lower funnel, all the way. Hot or not? And then, in your eyes or Ibotta eyes, what would be a closer to a more, while no one can really tell us what is an ideal shopping experience, what's going in the right direction? Because there's app, there's website. Not all websites are born the same. Some are really bad from a retail experience. Some are really easy with a couple clicks. And then, does the outcome of experience always mean home delivery is the best experience for the consumer? I'm just trying to get your view on what's a solid experience for the consumer or shopper.
So hot or not, I think it's hot. And honestly, every brand or consumer-facing entity, including grocery brands and grocers, should be continually evaluating their consumer experience so that they can optimize and create the best experience and continue to engage people. Those that did that well, I think, were better suited to deal with the challenges of the pandemic, as we just talked about. I think when it comes to the ideal UX, especially in the grocery space, it is about creating an experience that simplifies the consumer shopping journey and it maximizes value. So I mentioned at the beginning that I spent a bunch of time in the grocery space. And 15 years ago, I used to think that the two major drivers of where people shopped for groceries were price and convenience. I think that's largely true in many ways today. It's just that there's a whole lot of new tools available to drive convenience and price than there were 15 years ago when I was in the industry. But I don't think that everything necessarily needs to lead to home delivery. I think that there are many consumers who prefer to go into a store to pick out their goods or select their fruit. There's a reason that we saw a little bit of reversion from 25% of online grocery purchases to 15% of grocery purchases being online. There's a reason that while many people were predicting the doomsday scenario for brick and mortar retailers across the retail ecosystem back in 2020, those retailers, in many cases, not all, but many of those cases have continued to thrive because people like to be able to go in store in certain cases. Yet I do think it's really important to give the consumer flexibility to choose how and where they want to engage, when they want to engage, and to make it as easy as possible for them to find the products that they're looking for, potentially leveraging AI, as we just talked about, both in store and online. And then I do think just because brick and mortar is going to be around for a while, I don't think that means we need to take our eye off of the digital ball, so to speak. I think that brands that are focused on e-commerce are smart to do so, especially in grocery, because I think more so than in store, you have a once in the basket, always in the basket phenomenon that emerges. So, for example, in e-commerce, we see data that shows in many cases, somewhere in the ballpark of like 85% of consumers say that once they find a brand that they like, they're very likely to stick with that brand. But you also imagine with the ability to kind of just repopulate baskets and things that are easier to do online, it's more likely that people are just going to keep going back to the same brand. So it's really important that that grocery brands get in that basket now. I always love this analogy, which is imagine if you walked into a physical grocery store and they said, "Hey, Shri, good to see you. Here's your basket of groceries you always buy," and they just handed it to you, and you're like, "Perfect," and you walk it over to the POS and you check out. I mean, that's kind of what a lot of e-commerce shopping journeys might look like, and that's why it's so critical to get into that basket.
And Chris, you got to imagine with AI, early innings, arguably, but a couple of years from today, yes. First, to answer your question, nothing would make me happier if I just showed up at 6. I pressed a button from home, on an app, and then I'm there an hour. It tells me show come by at 1 o'clock. I didn't even have to go through the shopping experience of having to add all items to my cart. It told me, hey, would you like the same basket? I show up. I walk. I'm sitting at a parking lot spot, and boom, it shows up. I gotta imagine with AI, that's gonna happen at some point. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the possibilities are endless with AI, and certainly the ability to create a more personalized experience for the consumer in any type of I guess probably both in-store and online shopping experience will be enhanced by AI capabilities. Um, I'd say we'll probably see faster enhancement in the digital ecosystem than we will in brick and mortar, but it's possible that it will impact both.
Yeah, for sure. And then I'm curious, Chris, in the Jensen family household, what would qualify as frictionless or a good experience?
I mean, longer term, I think there are parts of this that exist today. I think for us, the ability to easily and seamlessly find the items we're looking for, which is actually not that easy in many cases because search functionality in many cases at certain grocers isn't as good as it is with other retailers. And Google has trained us to expect search to be amazing. And so I think we've got a little room for improvement in the retail ecosystem. But to be able to find the items we're looking for, seamlessly purchase those items, not just add them to the basket, but also check out and have those items either delivered or oftentimes we're out and about. And so pickup is just as easy, I think would be about as frictionless as I would expect today. But I think we continue to find opportunities for further personalizing my experience, helping me find and discover products that I might like that may have just emerged or which I just hadn't discovered yet based on historical purchase information that a retailer might have about me in order to drive discovery, and that enhances my experience. I think that there's probably a lot that could be done there too.
So, as I think through the experience, one of those that rises to the top of my mind is innovation, the I word. I think it's well known in the CPG industry that only 5% of innovation really survives and stays long term at the shelf, online or offline. I feel strongly, Chris, this is opinion of one, that in today's times, when a brand launches an innovation, it should first walk in with a digital plan, followed by the impact of the digital plan to the store shelf, and then the subsequent planogramming activity. I'm probably dating myself with the use of the word planogramming over here, but the subsequent mod functionality that goes in to place it in store. But I, for one, truly believe that the last 3 years commodity challenges led to significantly lower innovation for consumers on the shelf. It was a moment for digital to shine, and it wasn't leveraged well. So my first part of this question is: should brands go back to relying deeply on innovation, and then is digital how they should be deploying it first?
Yeah. So answering the first question first, I love both of those. So yeah, first of all, I definitely think that there has been a decline in innovation. I witnessed that as seeing fewer products show up on the shelf. And speaking with brands, I know that they're spending less, or they were at least over the course of the last year and a half. They were scaling back on R&D and other initiatives that would have led to innovation. I think this is going to cost them. I think that this is at the very same time that they're losing share to private label. That has lit a fire under grocers to double down on their private label investments, and it's given them more cash to be able to do that. So interestingly, I was reflecting on this. I think we'll probably see more private label innovation in the next 2 years than we've seen in the past 10. That therefore means that our national brand counterparts really need to get on their horse to think about how they're going to address that and make sure that they're staying out ahead of the innovation curve. I do think that brands are really good at innovation, despite the fact that they scaled back on it. I do think some of the historical tactics they deployed in terms of research and development and product rollouts could continue. Um, I do think that there's a lot of new technologies available, new tools to gather data about what consumers want. to be able to get their products in the hands of their target audience that brands really need to look to as they think about innovation in today's age. To the question about leading with digital, I guess the way I frame that is I'm a big fan of the lean startup in everything, in the way that we think about everything from how we build technology products to how we build teams to how we think about, physical product innovation. And if there is an easier path to testing your assumptions about what's going to work versus what's not, including digital versus getting a product to the shelf, if it's cheaper for you to be able to do that and enhance and speed up your feedback loop, absolutely you should lead with digital. And so my inclination is, yeah, you should definitely lead with digital because it probably does help you do those things and bring a better product to market faster.
Chris, I hear you loud and clear, right? So innovation, important, brands need to go back. The winners will actually take that to heart and go back to an innovation portfolio they've been proud of. Pre-COVID, clear that digital should lead from an innovation introduction perspective. So what does Ibotta do typically in working with brands, or what do you curate for brands, and how do you partner to launch innovation in the marketplace? And then secondly, if on day one an innovation is offered with rewards, doesn't it mean it hurts brand equity?
Yeah, it's a great question. Great questions. So to begin with, a lot of brands look to Ibotta as a great tool to help them bring new products to market because we're really good at getting products into the right customer's hands. And so we're really good at introducing an item that a consumer hadn't considered before, but which they might be interested in based on data we know of those consumers. By cutting consumers in on the deal versus running other types of ads, we also find that consumers are more persuaded to try something new. Helps take the sting out of the price that first time, and they're willing to. It lowers the barrier to entry. In other words, so absolutely, Ibotta is well equipped to do that. We also, help greatly. I kind of even earlier in the process, we spend a lot of time with brands doing research and insights. We have a tremendous amount of data, as we've talked about, but we also have a very talented and robust research and insights team that can do things like surveys and in-home use tests and things like that. So we can help make a brand smarter before they even get to the point of development, and certainly before they get to the point of putting a product on the shelf. When it comes to reducing, brand equity, I think that's something I've been sensitive to through my whole career. I mean, our objective is to make sure that we protect brand equity, whether that's an innovation product or an existing product. And for us, it comes down to, first of all, we think that cash back is superior to coupons because the consumer doesn't see a discount at the point of sale. It's a nuance. But the truth is that they pay full price for that product, and then they get rewarded with cash back that then rewards them later. But also, the idea of getting that product into the consumer's hands through that incentive is a powerful one. And then what we can do is start to think about how do we drive the repeat purchase? How do we drive, more purchases than we would have otherwise? I think our goals change after that first buy. That person's been introduced to that product. Now our objective is to get them keep buying that product, to steal share from competitors, to tell a friend about it. Whatever those things may be, we can be valuable in terms of helping them drive their objectives with that. And I think, we try to go along that journey with the brand to make sure we continue to service their needs even after the innovation period.
Thank you for that, taking that one on, Chris. So I want to go back to how we opened this kind of LinkedIn Live a little bit, which is we talked about changes in the ecosystem, and one of them was consumers have definitely, in a value-based ecosystem today, become less brand loyal. So I want to understand how Ibotta's offerings connect to brand loyalty, given that brand switching has rapidly changed this year. And then give me examples of actions that you can do to help brands retain consumers. And then even within the Ibotta universe, I'm sure not every program is exactly the same. What defines a good program?
Yeah, good questions. So first of all, I would say that we could definitely help brands retain customers and avoid a lot of the share shift by reaching the right customer with the right incentive to inspire the behavioral change that that the brand is looking to drive. That could be acquiring lapsed customers. It could be finding new customers. It could be driving household pen, some of the things that we just talked about. We can definitely help brands better understand their customers as well through that clean first party data we talked about. That enables them to build stronger relationships with their consumers and to be able to serve their customers better, both on Ibotta, but with their other marketing programs as well. It probably helps them, as I mentioned, with product development. Um, I think that programs like Ibotta, but particularly Ibotta, can help offset that sting of the price increase brands have taken to as a result to all the margin constraints and other cost increases that they've had, to be able to lure customers back from private label to help them drive volume in order to achieve successful comps. When it comes to a good program versus another one, I mean, I guess there's a couple different ways to think about that. There's the brand way of thinking about it, and then there's perhaps the way that Ibotta might think about it, optimizing within our own ecosystem. And so from a brand perspective, the first thing is, you've got to make sure that every dollar you're spending goes as far as possible toward achieving your specific KPIs. And so, brands should be insisting on pay for performance versus things like paying for a click or a clip, things like that. They should be insisting on programs that drive incremental purchases and that give them that clean, valid data and insights back, as well as the associated measurement with that. Now, from our perspective, brands who do it particularly well, or programs that do it particularly well, are ones that really hold us to a high standard of, high aspiration of what they're trying to achieve. We love those lofty objectives of brands trying to acquire a lot of new customers or to solve hard problems. Hey, we're losing share in this particular subset of our marketplace due to a really strong competitor, or due to some other phenomenon that may have occurred. And we love it when they come challenge us with a problem that they're facing and ask us to come back to the table with solutions on how to address, and then hold us to a high bar of execution and measurement. I think, in my own experience, being on the brand side and then now being on this side, I've always loved those brands and those conversations that challenge us to really raise the bar as to what you can expect from your marketing dollars. I love the brands that do that with us, and sometimes they're makes for challenging work for us, but we embrace that, and so I think that's how I would think about those brands that do it best.
So one follow up to that I have, Chris, is um, frequent shopper cards, right? Retailers have frequent shopper cards, and they have all kinds of rewards programs associated with those that can manifest themselves in many ways. So is Ibotta a complementary bolt on to frequent shopper cards? Is it a separate? You can do Ibotta even without a frequent shopper card.
I think it's complementary. When I think about frequent shopper cards, I do think about it more often in certain ecosystems like restaurants and things like that. And we aren't yet playing aggressively in that space. We do offer cash back on restaurants and things like that. We can be a substitute for frequent shopper programs for restaurants, because we can inspire people to buy multiple times from a particular brand or from a particular retailer. So in that sense, Ibotta is potentially a substitute. But when I think about it in the grocery ecosystem in particular, I think that we're a complement. I tend to think about frequent shopper cards oriented a little bit more toward driving store visits than specific product purchases, whereas our program is very much about trying to broaden or deepen the consumer's basket and getting them to buy specific products. I would say that the best of all worlds is being able to do both. And so, that's absolutely the way that we're working with our retailers, is to make sure that we're creating a program that is highly valuable to their consumers. We're bringing the best offers available to their consumers. We're constructing those in a way that's very easy for those consumers to find and redeem, because that creates the greatest value for everybody in the ecosystem. The consumers win; they make more money. The retailers win because they create a lot more digital engagement. They get to know their consumers better. They create more omni-channel customers, and Ibotta wins because we've got happy customers and happy retailers, and we make more money because of it.
Fair enough. So normally, Chris, this is the point on a Sunday evening where I would ask a co-host of mine to summarize what we learned today, but I believe we have a surprise for our audience, because at some point, I believe in the near future, y'all will be working with us to release an infographic. which kind of summarizes what happened over the last 3 years and the so what coming out of that. So I will tease it today, but I won't share it today. More to come, but do look out for that summary very shortly. So let me remind our audience that you can find all of our content by going to a web browser and typing cpgguys.com as a URL. And of course, if you think your company has some thought leadership to contribute to our community discussion, simply drop us an email at contact@cpgguys.com and maybe you can join us on the podcast just like Chris did today. Don't forget to drop us a rating at cpgguys.com in the navigation bar on top. Folks, 24.5K followers on LinkedIn. We know this is huge. This show doesn't exist without you. Thank you for the repeat DMs, the likes, the clicks, the shares, and the conversations you all have with us, both in private and in public. Chris, I can't thank you enough to represent Ibotta and take time out of your Sunday evening and being live here with us today. So sincerely, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I'm so grateful you had us on. It was awesome to get to talk to you. I'm a big fan of the podcast, and so it was fun to get to be a guest. So thanks very much for your time as well, Sri.
Thank you, Chris. A couple of reminders for audience. Number one, if you notice below, you can see the link to an earlier episode we had with Brian Leach, the CEO and founder of Ibotta, which does address a lot of topics like the data, the value proposition, things we somewhat covered today, but in much more depth, and things we didn't cover today as well. And then, as I mentioned, we got an infographic coming up shortly, more on that. If you keep looking at the cpgguys.com LinkedIn page, I promise you'll find it as an Easter egg very shortly. That's a wrap for this LinkedIn Live, and we will see you soon on another Sunday with another LinkedIn Live. Thank you.